Hello, everybody. How are you all doing today? Welcome back to Mama's Kitchen. Today, I'm going to show you how I make my fish stew. Yorubas call this stew obeja, and this just means fish stew. So, this soup is always eaten with swallows like eba, amala, fufu, or any other ones that you're comfortable with. Here today I'm going to be using croaker fish, but I would like to warn you, if you have little children in the house, please do not use croaker fish. Croaker has a lot of bones in it. So please use some other fish like titles or any other fish you can find, but not croaker if you have children. So we're going to be using croaker fish. This croaker has been washed. This is frozen croaker, washed and washed and is in the bowl. I'm going to be using tomatoes. The best tomatoes to use for this stew is plum tomatoes. I'm going to be using some bell pepper. You might want to use more or less. It all depends on your taste. Here I have 6 tomatoes, 6 bell peppers in the bowl. I'm going to be using some red oil, palm oil. I'm going to be using Knorr tomato powder, and this is to make my stew red and also to give it to season it. Using that because my tomatoes are not really ripe, so I'm going to use that tomato powder to make it red, just as a food color. Okay, I'm going to be using some onions. Please don't use all the onions you see here, just use one. I'm going to be using a lot of habanero pepper because I like my fish sauce to be spicy. Back to the bell pepper, please do not use too much. Like I said before, just use as much as you're comfortable with. I'm going to be using salt to taste, and of course my favorite, Knorr cubes. So let's get in the kitchen and make this happen. Okay, now I'm going to start cooking this soup, this stew. And the first thing I do is to turn on my stove, and I showed you the tomatoes and pepper. This is everything here grinded: the tomatoes, the pepper, the habanero pepper, the bell pepper, the tomatoes and everything, and onions. It's all grinded here. So how I start my fish stew is by getting the pot warm, and I like to season and boil my meat, my fish separately. So here I have this fish, and I chop my onions. I don't want to put chunky onions in this because I can't take it out. It's going to be in the soup. So you put some onions, you slice it as little as to the smallest size, just try and slice it to the smallest size that you can. And I do this because I don't want the fish to be I want the fish to really be tasty inside the soup, because I'm not going to keep this fish in the stew for too long. So I want it to at least be seasoned on its own before it gets in the soup. So I put my chopped onions. I also like to boil my fish or stock, even meat, with fresh dry pepper. So I put some dry pepper, not too much. It gives it some beautiful taste. When you try it, you will understand what I mean. And then finally, I'm going to put some salt. I don't use cubes Knorr cubes for my fish. I use just ordinary salt. So I'm going to season it with salt. Remember, there's going to be salt in the food too, so don't over season the fish. Like, this is a half spoon of salt. I'm just going to season it a little bit. And then finally, I want you to know that this is not going to be cooking for too long. This is just like for 5 minutes, just for you to season your fish. You don't want the fish to become too soft. So you just put a little bit of water on the side. That's how I do it, on the side, not too much, and you can just put a little here. And you put your stove on low, and you just let it cook for like 5 minutes, max 10. So I'm going to let it cook while I continue with my soup. The first thing I do, the pot is getting dried out with water. It depends on your style. Some people fry their stew, put oil in it and fry it first, and some people mix everything up together. I do both, but I'm going to show you how I cook it with the oil at the same time. It doesn't really matter. I don't like frying my fish stew. I just want to I don't want to fry the oil first. I fry it with the tomatoes together. They boil together, and afterward it fries on its own. So here the pot is ready. I'm just going to pour in my tomatoes. People This is a tricky one. It's always so be careful how you pour it. I pour in my tomatoes and pepper and everything. Pour it in gently. And then I'll let it boil for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then I'll pour the red oil. Okay, this has been boiling for like 5 minutes plus, and I want to take it out because I don't want to overcook the fish. So sorry, this is what I do. You have to be careful because you don't want the fish smashed. So actually I'm gonna be skillful here. You don't want your fish to be broken into pieces. So take it out gently into a clean bowl. So you bring everything out. You don't want to overcook it, like I said. Just 5 minutes of being in the pot. So when I bring it out, I just pour back the water or the stock. I pour it just over it to keep, you know, seasoning it as I wait for the food. Just on the side or on top, anywhere, just pour it there. And put it aside. Okay, this pepper has been boiling for more than 10 minutes. This is about 15 minutes now. And I've not added the oil, so I'm going to add the oil into it right now. And I left it open because I didn't want it to overflow. I would have put oil and then closed it, but most times I like it to boil a little bit on its own before I add oil. So I'm going to add oil now. Pardon me, our oil is always sleeping. So I'm gonna use about 2 spoons of oil. This is one. You can use more. Actually, let me use 3. You see, the oil will bring everything down. So this is the 3rd one because this spoon is not really big. So now there's oil in it. I'm gonna let it, I'm not turning it. I'm gonna let it keep frying on its own for as long as I want it to fry. Let's say maybe 10 minutes for the pepper to really dry up and then the soup to thicken up. That's what I'm doing right here. So let's go. Okay, this has been boiling for a while. This is almost like 20 minutes. I'm gonna turn the light off because I'll put the light back on when I finish showing you what I'm showing you. So you can see the sauce is dried down. It's fried up. You can see it. You don't need to turn your pepper stew too much, okay? Don't turn it too much. So the sauce is dried down. Now I'm gonna start putting my seasonings. Well, I'm still not gonna put the fish yet. So I'm putting my Knorr cubes. I'm using 2 cubes of Knorr for this size of pot. Excuse my big pot. I should have used a small pot for this, but I felt like since I was going to boil the oil down, I needed a big pot to take care of that. So I put my Knorr cubes, and I'm going to put some salt. As usual, this is about ½ spoon of salt. And I'm going to put my tomato Knorr powder. And I told you before that this is just to make the food red. And since it's salty, I'm just using only 1 spoon. Can you see it? 1 heaped spoon. That's it. And you're going to see the transformation. You're going to see the color change. The sauce will be very red. So I'm going to leave this to cook for another 10 minutes just to fry itself down. has been boiling for a while now. So I'm going to start adding my fish. You see, it's all dried up and tasty too. Like I told you, don't turn your peppers, your fish sauce too much. I tell you, this is good. Because of the splashes, I always turn off the stove at this point, and then I'm going to start putting in my fish. You add your fish like this. So you put in your fish gently, because I'm still going to take this fish out when I finish cooking. I'm going to take the fish out and keep the sauce separately and keep the fish separately, so that I can have the fish till the soup is finished, not the fish smashed into the soup. You can notice that I did not add water since I started cooking. So now I'm going to add this water from the fish. This is the water from the fish. And I won't add it immediately. I'll let this boil down a little bit. You see the way it is? Just try to gently turn your fish. I mean, gently mix it up. Don't smear it. You mix it up gently. You know, you have to be very, very careful here. So I'm just putting the sauce over the fish. You don't have to mix it in. Just, you know, put it over it like this. And then I'm going to put back I'm going to pour this water in, and then I'm going to put the heat back on and just let it cook on its own for just 5 minutes. I mean just 5 minutes, nothing more than that. Because you don't want the fish to be smeared all over. So I put the heat back on, and I'm going to leave it for 5 minutes. Okay, this has been boiling for 5 minutes, and that's the end of the soup. I'm going to turn off the stove, and that's how I make my peppered sauce, fish sauce. So what I'm going to do at this point is take out the fish. It depends on what you want. I normally just take it out and put it separately in a pot. Take out the fish. So when you're serving someone, you can, you know, just give them fish. So I'm taking out all the fish. And when you finish taking out this fish, you can still let the soup boil a little more if you want it to be thicker than what it is. But I think this is thick enough. So I'm just taking out this fish, and that will be it. The stove is off. Okay, people, so this is all the fish in the pot. I put it away in a separate pot, and I'm going to just leave it slightly closed to get out the heat. And here is the sauce, the main sauce, and I'm going to just transfer that into a smaller pot. You know, so I can serve it from there, put it in the fridge, and serve it from there. So that's how I come up with my fish stew. This stew is very good with amala, eba. You know, if you want to eat gari and you don't want to eat it with any soup, you can just make this soup and, you know, use it to eat it. This is the fish, and this is the sauce. And I'm going to serve it and let you see how it is. Okay, people, this is the end product. This is the obeja, the fish stew. Like I said before, this soup can be eaten with any swallow. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good weekend and bon appetit.